Hello friends, this is Tisha from Meadows and Mortar by Tisha. We are going to be taking this old nightstand here and we are going to be transforming it into something beautiful. Now you can see this is a disaster right now. One of my friends from work, she actually got this from her husband's grandmother's house. It was getting ready to be demolished. Nobody had lived there in years, and they went through to see if there was anything that they could take home to kind of restore or to keep that would be a good reminder of his grandmother. My friend didn't know much about this piece. All that she knew is that it looked like it had been painted quite a few times. But other than that, she didn't know anything about it. She brought it to me. It was in horrible shape. The drawers were broken. The back of it was coming off. The top of it had obviously came off completely. And we just didn't really know what we were going to do with it. So the first thing that I tried is I started taking some stripper. I used Green Easy stripper to put all over it to try to take off those coats of paint. Now with Green Easy stripper, I like to put it on pretty thick and then I like to cover it up with plastic wrap for a few hours and then I like to take it off. Now all you have to do is just use a little scraper. You can use a plastic scraper, you can use a metal scraper, you can use a carbide scraper, whatever you'd like to do to get that off of there. After you get it off, I like to take just some soapy water and try to get the residue off. There's actually a Green Easy cleaner that you can use after that to take the residue off as well. It's just that I happen to be out of it whenever I needed it this time. So I just used Dawn dish soap in a scrubber and took off the residue. After it dried, I used my Surf Prep sander to sand it off because even though you use the stripper, that's never the final product. You still have to use your sander as well. As you can see, it looks like the veneer has been removed off of this, and you can see the substrate there has all of these swirls in it, and I could not get those off of there. I'm not sure if that was some sort of texture that had been applied before, or if that's just some really strong glue that they had from the substrate to the veneer at some point. I honestly don't know, but I could not get those out of there. So I decided that I was just going to work with it. My friend likes texture, so I just filled up the biggest gouges with some Bondo, and I'm gonna work with it. So right here there was a huge chunk out of this front part of this drawer, so I just filled it up with the Bondo. If you've never used Bondo before, know that it's supposed to be a lot thinner than that. It's not supposed to be that thick. Mine was an old container, but I worked with what I had. Now for the front of the drawers, I used some of this spot glazing putty. It is also from Bondo, but this is not for like big, huge gouges. This is just for small imperfections that you would use that on. And then I'm just going back through again with my Surf Prep sander around the edges of everything to try to make sure that I'm getting all of the goop around all of the little detailed parts. After I'd talked to my friend and she told me that she was okay with texture, I decided to use Paint Couture's embossing medium, and I mixed it with a little bit of their color called Abyss, and all that this did was just take that texture medium and give it a color. So then I just use a stencil, and then I'm just using a little silicone tool and I'm scraping it over top of it so that I'm getting that stenciled effect. And then around the base of the feet, I'm taking that same texture additive, but I'm just using a chip brush just to put it around the edges of it. So I thought that I would want just a little bit of texture all over it, but I didn't really feel like having the actual stenciled part on the edges would look right. So to be able to get the best of both worlds, that's what I decided to do. For the top, I'm using General Finishes stain in the color Tobacco. This is a nice medium brown color, maybe a dark brown actually. I feel like it's more medium though. I love this color. I use it quite a bit. This is a water-based stain, so it's easy cleanup. It doesn't have like a super gross smell to it or anything. You can use a pre-stain conditioner or you can not use a pre-stain conditioner, either way that you would like. I knew that this was going to be a rustic piece, so I didn't use a pre-stain conditioner this time. But if it was going to be more of a clean cut piece and I was wanting it to be like flawless, then I would have used a pre-stain conditioner first. So I still do the 24-hour dry time before I use my second coat on it, so that's what I did there. Now it's time for blending. This is my favorite part of painting furniture. I love to blend. I'm using Paint Couture in the color Dark Sea, Shellstone, and Sophia. So the way that I'm wanting to do this one is I'm wanting the lightest color in the middle, and then I'm going to use the medium color outside of that, and then the darkest color on the edges of it. So you'll see me use a little bit of water. Some people that use Paint Couture paint, they do not use water with theirs. I feel like as long as I'm using a small amount, it does fine. It doesn't really affect anything, but I do know that they say to use an extender instead of a mister bottle, but this is just what I prefer to do, but you do whatever you want. So once that I get the lighter color and the middle color, I'm just going to take a brush and just swirl it around together. This brush that I'm using, it's a fatter brush, fatter bristles on the end of it, and then I'm just using a swirling motion. So I'm swirling from the outside in, I'm pulling the darker colors into the lighter colors, and then I just work it all together. Now sometimes I'll use swirls, I'll use up and down motions, I'll use diagonal motions, just whatever I need to do. Now you can see me pulling that middle color a little more to the outside, and then I'm taking my darkest color to the very edge of it. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So I find that instead of putting all three of my colors on at once, if I work in sections of 2, it seems to work out better for me. Now I have friends that do it the other way. They put all 3 colors on at the same time, and that's completely fine. It's just whatever your comfort level is, and this is what I prefer to do. So you saw that I blended those together in the middle, and then I blended the 2 outer colors together, and then I'm just taking a dry neutral brush that doesn't have anything on it, and then I'm just feathering it over top of all of it to sort of blend all 3 of the colors together. Now in between each one of those swipes, you can't see it where this is fast right now, but I actually have an old rug there underneath me, and I just lay off any excess paint on that rug to try to keep my brush as dry as possible so that I'm not muddying up all of my colors together. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, but I started with the darker color on the outside this time, and then I'm going to move into the medium color, and then I'll move into the lighter color. There was no reason for this other than that's the paintbrush that I had in my hand at the time. I'm still going to be using the same 3 colors, still going to be blending the same 3 colors together, but I'm just doing it in the opposite direction this time. And you don't have to do this. You can do, the same exact way with each side if that's what you prefer. And if you haven't already, I'd like to take this opportunity just to ask you if you would like this post, if you would comment on it, and if you would subscribe to my channel. So I know that I don't have a lot of content right now, but I'm working to fix that. I love to do home decor refreshes. I love to do painting furniture, and I would love to have you guys along with me. So I may have some crazy tips and tricks that you've never heard of before, or I may have stuff that you've seen before, and you might be able to help me. So please, the more that you interact, the better that this will be, the more I'm going to be able to bring out content, and I'm just so excited to have you guys here with me. I know that you probably didn't want to watch some Southern girl paint furniture and decor all the time, but here we are, and I'm so glad to have you with me. So I'm doing the same thing all over every side of this, and then you're going to see it get really hyper speed fast here, but it's the same exact thing as before. All 3 of the colors, I'm blending 2 colors together at a time, and you see that I'm doing a coat over top of the coats that I already have. This is just to make sure that I get a good coverage on everything. Now I'm going to be using a little bit of the color Sophia and mixing it in with some water. I don't know an exact ratio. I just made it really thin. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to catch that texture, because remember, everywhere that I didn't have the raised stencil, I had that texture on it. So I'm wanting a good color variation. So I'm wanting the Sophia to kind of settle in where the little crevices are, but then I'm wanting the darker color to still be on the outside. I'm wanting this to look worn and weathered, so this isn't going to be a perfect paint finish, because this piece, is probably, I'd say, 70 years old, and it's in bad condition, and I don't want it to look like it's just knocked up and beat around. I want it to look like it has some authenticity to it. I want it to look aged and worn, but in a beautiful sort of way. So you'll see that whenever I put that paint wash on there, I take a rag and I'm just dabbing it off. I'm not wanting a ton of that Sophia to stay on there, just enough to kind of make the texture pop a little bit. If you wanted the Sophia to come through more, you could not water it down as much as I did. You could make it a thicker mixture, or you could just not wipe off as much as I did. Now you'll see with my rag there, I'm kind of wiping and then I'm dabbing, wiping and then dabbing, so it doesn't look the exact same all over. It looks like it was worn, you know, authentically. So I do it on the inside as well. I don't put as much of it on the inside of it where I blended. The majority of this is going to go towards the outside of it where there's just the plain texture that I used with the paintbrush. Then I do a light little scuff sand with a 120 grit, and then I add Paint Couture Extreme Guard, and I use satin on this, and you can use any sheen that you'd like. This is just going to give me some nice durability over top of my paint finish. So I did 2 coats of this, although you can't see that. And then I take these resin molds that I had made. I just used a 2-part resin system, and I believe these were redesigned with Prima molds that I used to make these back plates. And I just drilled a hole in the middle of them, painted them that darkest blue color, and then I put them over top of the hole where I already had the hole from the previous hardware. Then I'm going to take another piece of hardware that I got this from Hobby Lobby, and then I just put it straight through those holes. So this right here really adds a nice finish to it. It looks a little more complete than just the plain Hobby Lobby one. Then I take that same top coat and I put it over top of the top part of my piece as well. To add a little bit more definition, a little more depth and shadow, I use some black wax, and I just put it around the edges of my key mold there. And then I take this right here is actually a blush brush, and then I just spread it out to smudge it out a little bit. So this is just going to draw your eye in towards where this knob is, or pull, whatever you want to call it. And then I just take that same black wax and I go along the edges of it and any creases around the legs, just to kind of bring more definition and to draw the eye in towards the middle of the piece. Now, things like this is really what's going to make your piece stand out from other people in the area. This is going to make it look more complete and more professional. And all those back plates, they look gorgeous. They don't match that hardware from Hobby Lobby perfectly, so I'm taking some silver gilding wax just to put over the high points of the back plate. That's really going to make it pop. And then I take it and put it over top of the silver part on the Hobby Lobby piece as well. Although that was already silver, it wasn't the same exact silver, and it just makes it look like they are supposed to be together. And then I attach my top to it. This is not my preferred way to attach the top to a piece, but this is the way that it was done before I got it. It was nailed in with nails. So I just used those same nails, the same nail holes, and put it back in its place. The inside of it, I just added some wallpaper to it just to make it look a little more pretty and complete. And then after I got that down in there, I used some furniture salve. I used a kind from Wise Owl just to refresh everything, make sure that it's not, you know, super dry anymore. It's going to moisten up that wood. It's going to make it smell good, and it's really my preferred way to do the inside of the drawers. They make different types of furniture salves, but I have found that Wise Owls, it smells the best. I like the tobacco, I think it's called tobacco flower maybe. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. It reminds me of like old pipe tobacco, like the fruity kind. It smells really, really good. But this is going to make your drawers just glide smoother, and it's just going to keep it from drying out so bad, and it's going to make your product last longer. And here is our final product. So it's no longer falling apart. It is beautiful, it is regal, and I am so happy with the way that this turned out. I hope you guys enjoy this, and I hope that you'll tune in next time for the next project that I have. Thanks for watching, guys, and let me know if you need anything or if you have any questions.